How do you self-coach to build resilience through the practice of self-regulation of your emotions? Hi, welcome again to another episode of Rewrite Your Story. I'm Coach Anika, and this is part 2 of the 3-part series on how to build resilience through self-coaching, which should be part of every entrepreneur's self-coaching toolkit. In this episode, I'll be sharing how to practice emotional grit so you can adapt to difficult or challenging situations through self-regulation of your emotions. Now, do check out episode 41 if you missed it on nurturing self-awareness to build mental flexibility, which goes hand in hand with building your emotional flexibility, which is what we're going to cover in this episode. You ever find yourself overwhelmed in a situation that is new or challenging? It probably creates self-doubt due to a past experience in a similar situation. See, we cannot protect ourselves from challenges and difficult situations. As an entrepreneur, they're inevitable. We cannot control what shows up for us, but we can control how we choose to respond to it. Negative emotions like fear, anxiety, intimidation, these arise because of an imbalance of 3 E's: ego conflict, emotional reality, and expectations fairness. Let's break these down and understand how to create balance between them so that we can have a conscious self-regulation of our emotions. E number 1, conflict of the ego. Our ego or pride is a defense reaction where we place ourselves above the situation at hand. We see the situation as our enemy at war, and we want to win it over. The need to win is usually rooted in a fixed mindset that we have regarding the challenge at hand, which blinds us from thinking logically and creating a solution for the problem that faces us. We want to park our ego at the door so that we can reduce the overwhelm and think rationally. So when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, first practice self-awareness through the tools shared in episode 41. Quieten the noise in your head and imagine the challenge or the situation without your association with it. Extract yourself personally as the player in the situation. Extract your beliefs and your thoughts that might be guiding any judgment that you have of the situation. Yeah, you want to look at it from a neutral eye. Treat it like a puzzle that needs to be solved. And once you extract yourself without the inflated ego, you will be able to see the picture from both sides. This will make it easier to find a rational solution rather than an emotional response. So balance out that ego conflict with personal detachment. Next, the next E is for the reality of the emotions that you're feeling. Emotions act as a GPS in our day-to-day life. They tell us whether we're going in the positive or the negative direction. Emotions are responses to how we perceive a situation, and the state of our mind creates the reality we see. We can be more mindful of this, broaden our lens, and expand the boundaries that we feel are limiting us and creating this perception from a place of possibilities so that we can see it in a more positive light. Why do some people get really excited with roller coasters while others are absolutely petrified of it? Roller coasters do not bring the same emotion to each and every person. Emotions have no emotion of their own. They're just how we perceive them, and we can change the reality that we see. Here are some practices to help with strengthening of your emotional flexibility by the balance of the negative emotions that you might be feeling. So emotions get triggered by an event. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to track your steps back to what was the point in this event that triggered this negative emotion. You want to define the reality behind the emotion. When an event happens, then multiple thoughts actually get processed in our mind. These are the various choices that we have in terms of the responses that we can make. We judge the situation, or should I say, our mind judges the situation and the people involved in it based on the familiarity that we have of the situation to our values and belief systems. These are deep rooted in our mind, and they're actually our guide to how we behave and respond. However, there might be values and belief systems which you had in your childhood, or even 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. Your mind is still using it as the rule book, but those values may have already changed for you, or you may be at the cross points of questioning them and looking at exploring a change for them. So we want to connect the dots of the event that triggered this negative emotion and see what was the source of it, and then question its reality. You want to sit with this emotion, journal about it, meditate about it, reflect. Where does it come from? Was it something you saw years ago? Maybe something you heard some time ago, or maybe it was something that you witnessed. This could be years ago, or it could be as recent as last week. So you want to find out, where does this emotion come from? Because when you know where it comes from, we can then tackle it with a more logical mind. You want to practice role play on seeing this scenario from another's perspective. Now, usually, if we've got an emotional reaction to a situation, it does pertain to other people that are part of the situation directly or indirectly. The person or persons that you have an emotional challenge with, you want to role play and put yourself in their shoes, but without the emotional context that you have around this person. Creative visualization is a powerful tool that you can use to practice this. Can you build an understanding for yourself as to why the other person or persons are behaving the way that they are? There's always a reason why people do certain things. They don't always know them, though. You don't have to agree with it, but understanding it will strengthen your emotional flexibility. And we're now able to place ourselves without emotional context in the shoes of the person or the persons who are involved in this event or this situation that is causing this negative reaction for us, right? This negative emotion for us. So lastly, what we want to do is we want to question the fairness of the expectations that we have in this given situation. If you follow the practices to balance the ego conflict and the emotional reality, the first two E's, then you rise up from being the player in this situation that is looking to win to now being a problem solver. As a problem solver, you want to assess your expectations on two fronts: reasonability and communication. Ask yourself, are your expectations reasonable? Let's say you're overwhelmed with the inefficiency of your team. Are the expectations that you have on the required performance reasonable? Do they have the mindset and the skills to meet your expectations? Are they willing to learn? Are they willing to grow to meet the expectations that you have? If not, what can you do to raise or change their mindset and their skill level? This brings us to finally communicating these expectations. Let's stay with the same scenario, and let's assume that your team does have the mindset and the skills. Now, ask yourself, have you communicated your expectations to them? You want to formulate a request to your team firmly and clearly for the tangible and intangible needs that are expected of them. However, you do want to keep a two-way channel of communication open to understanding the other party's viewpoint. Lack of or inefficient communication is the number one reason for disparity or imbalance in any type of relationship, professional or personal. So keep that two-way channel of communication open to understanding the other person's point of view. Perhaps they expect something from you that you may be unaware of. Just as you have expectations, so do they. They may not have communicated their own expectations of you as the team manager or the business owner. Remember, you're solving a problem. You're not trying to win the conversation. This is a discussion, not an argument. So treat it with an open mind. Let's recap. Self-regulation of what we're feeling in challenging situations is critical to enhancing emotional flexibility. In part 1 of this series, we talked about nurturing the mental flexibility. Self-regulation is about enhancing your emotional flexibility. Practicing emotional grit helps us stay focused on what we are passionate about and think from a place of possibilities instead of limitations, so that we don't get bogged down by the negative emotions that are created from a situation that we find challenging or new. You can do this by activating the logical reasoning instead of letting our emotions take over our thinking. Let's control them. Let's regulate them. You want to balance out the 3 E's between your ego conflict, the emotional reality, and the expectations fairness of your expectations. I look forward to seeing you in the following episode, which will be part 3 of the series, where we'll be taking a deep dive into how to keep your motivation fueled so that you can stay consistent with your evolutionary growth as an entrepreneur. See you in the next episode. Until then, take care and stay awesome.